All right, so I have some thoughts. This is my take on Beyonce, and a take that I think a lot of cis, heterosexual black men seem to take when talking about her music. And I've found it really interesting over the past couple months how much that seems to have permeated so many people's perspectives on Beyonce, on her level of success, on what makes her music palatable to certain communities and not as palatable to others. So that's been really interesting for me to think about, and I kind of just want to share some thoughts here. My partner and I went to go see Beyonce in August, and I actually had a New Year's resolution to go to less concerts because I was spending so much money on concerts last year. But tickets came out, and I think in like February or March. She's like, we gotta go, we gotta go. At that point, I was a fan of Beyonce's. I liked Beyonce, but I wouldn't go as far as to say I, adored or worshipped or, insert beehive adjective. Beyonce was just kind of like cool. Like there were songs off the B-Day album, mainly songs produced by the Neptunes that I really gravitated to. But as a self-proclaimed pop enthusiast, there was much of her discography that I wasn't really aware of. I just hadn't taken the time to do the homework or go back. And Renaissance had come out, July of last summer. And I remember it coming out thinking, ooh, this seems like really stacked. Like there's a lot of tracks. I'm kind of getting a sense of the vibe with Break My Soul. I don't really know if this is going to be for me, but I kind of skimmed through and listened. And after initial listen, I kind of found one song that I returned to. And that song was Plastic Off the Sofa. When I've talked to other black male friends about whether or not they've listened to the album, a lot of them have said either no, they have not listened to it at all, or two, they've listened to it and the only song they liked was Plastic Off the Sofa. So at that point I thought, that's really interesting. And upon seeing her in concert, I think that really was like the full experience, what Renaissance was meant to be as an audio piece, but also as this immersive experience. And between everyone else coming in super dressed up, it was a whole different world. The city and the landscape of the city I was in changed because of her presence. So it was really interesting to like experience that full on, as opposed to kind of skim through on Spotify and listen to the tracks haphazardly. So after seeing those songs live, I went back to Renaissance and I thought, wow, there's really so much here. Like from a pop standpoint especially, like, and not only is it just pop, but it's so subversive in its messaging too, which Beyonce I think has always been really good at, as far as like, giving us a message and letting us know who it's for, but not to the point where it feels alienating or it feels like certain communities can't listen to it or they can't get as much out of it. But for some reason, straight black men seem to take that route and don't, do the deep dives in her albums. With Beyonce, there's never a conversation between us of, oh bro, have you checked out the new Beyonce album? Like that just doesn't happen. So to hear it fully contextualized a year after its release and fully see the world and the vision and the colors and everything that album had to offer and is still offering, at this point I'm like, wow, I really was just ignorant. And mind you, I turned 25 over the last year, so I'm chalking up some of it to my, frontal lobe developing. It's really interesting hearing it in that full context to now go back and be like, just about every song on this album is perfect. Like, it is cover to cover such a rich, dense, beautiful homage to this period of time and ballroom culture, and not only just taking that and copy paste like maybe some other artists, but really like showing flowers and giving love and building upon it. Like there's very few artists that are doing that. And I think when I think about pop music, when I say I'm a pop enthusiast, I love things that are popular. Like that's how I kind of define pop music. It's not just Katy Perry, although Katy Perry had bangers. It's not just Katy Perry, it's not just whatever you hear on the radio or even on TikTok at this point. It's things that have like a rhythmic and lush quality to them that allows for dance, that allows for choreography, that allows for self-expression. The music lends itself to that, and that to me kind of defines pop music. So being able to see this record performed where all of that is being displayed at its fullest extent, I was like, well, I'm just a hypocrite then if I'm saying that I like pop music and Renaissance, one of the biggest pop albums of last year, I can only point to one song on. How does that make any sense? So I was kind of unpacking this with some friends of mine. We were talking about, Plastic Off the Sofa, and we were kind of like peeling the layers apart, and like sonically the song is beautiful. It's layered with gorgeous harmony. She has this crazy run on it. The messaging is beautiful, the composition, I think Sid from the internet had a hand in it. So it's got all these elements that make it so pretty and entertaining. But doesn't Beyonce have other pretty, entertaining music? And as I label myself a pop enthusiast, isn't that the least pop song on the album, or one of? It's definitely more R&B laced than it is pop laced, though it's all kind of a melding of genres. So it's interesting that that's the one we're gravitating to. And then we kind of explored this somewhat tired but relevant comparison between Beyonce and Solange. I posed the question, if you had to pick, who would you pick? And had I not gone to that Beyonce show, the answer would have unanimously been Solange. And I asked myself, why is that? I asked them, why is that? Why do we pit these two sisters together? I guess it's so culturally easy to do so and societally easy to do so. But why do we gravitate with Solange Knowles' messaging over Beyonce, especially myself, again, as someone who loves pop music? And we were kind of peeling back the layers and thinking about Solange's most recent, full body work, When I Get Home. And a lot of that is kind of like an R&B subdued pop, but there's so many layers, and her vocals have so much character and texture to them that they're not always on full display. They kind of meld in with the music itself. And we're like, well, what's the layers of that? Is it that she is a more subdued person? I don't think so. I don't think anything in our culture leads us to believe she's any more calm or more chill than Beyonce. And if so, why should that affect our listening experience? On top of that, Beyonce has that kind of music too. So then we pivoted to the messaging. Okay, well, I kind of listen to lyrics secondary, more so for me it's the music. But a lot of Beyonce's songs are very sexually overt, sexually empowering with its messaging. So is it a comparison of Solange talking about, cranes in the sky and trying to push whatever it is away and not being able to, but still overcoming that, versus Beyonce talking about how comfortable she is in her skin and how she knows the assets of her body and is willing to use them? I don't know if that's fully it either. And if we peel back the layers, Solange has songs like that too. Songs like Bins totally reference her sexual power over men, how she feels in certain situations with men, and how she's willing to kind of move forward with them without really giving it a second thought. So it's not really their messaging either that's creating a disconnect for us to listen to Beyonce versus Solange. Because if we're going to run up Bins, come on. I mean, we could run up, maybe not Rocket, but we could run up, Pure Honey or Cozy at least or something. So then one of my friends brought up a good point. Well, is it because we think and associate Solange with being soothing and calming in certain ways that Black women are expected to be soothing and calming and uplifting and empowering, but not too loud and not too abrasive and not too in your face? And is it that subconsciously we're just misprocessing misogynoir and not listening to Beyonce's music because of that? That can't be it. That can't be it. That can't be it. But it might be. It might be. And this led me to really check myself, go back and listen to just about every one of Beyonce's main projects since B-Day. And I found so much. I mean, this is sounding like so dumb. Like, oh my gosh, have y'all heard SZA's Control? Like, it's so good. Like, I did that a year after it came out because I was just the lobe. But I went back and I was like, oh my gosh, like this woman has so many hits. Like, obviously the ones we've heard on the radio, but even some of those, I never really took the time to listen to Break My Soul. And the stuff she sang in there is like, come on, like we need that more than ever. And I think another really interesting thing about Beyonce's albums and her career and her trajectory is that she's never sacrificed the art. And if you look at it, she's streaming at number 43 on Spotify. And you know, if we compare to contemporaries, Rihanna is like, I think in top 10 or top 20. Rihanna hasn't put out an album since 2016, and Beyonce's been putting out major releases consistently. And I think what comes with that is that Beyonce has never really made a commercially viable album. And we could tie that into the whole Grammys thing. That's a whole other discussion. But she's never watered down her albums. And this isn't to say that Rihanna or whoever else is ahead of her has done that. But she's been so conceptually consistent in her music where it's so subversive and it's so different and it is so boundary pushing that it's not really radio friendly. And maybe with TikTok that might change some things, and there's different avenues for these songs to be displayed in full context, but she's still not getting the streams that, you know, We Found Love with David Guetta or whoever's on that song is. So it is really interesting to think about how those songs get contextualized in the public eye and what people think about them. So going back to the discussion of, is it that black men prefer listening to black women when they're in a soothing cadence versus a Beyonce who can still do that, but a lot of what we know her for are her anthems. And then I think the other aspect of that is that with black women in media, you can occupy a space where maybe you're not soothing and comforting, but you're kind of, you know, you're hard. Like I listen to like Lotto or Sexy Red's kind of the new trending artist right now with Ski Yee, and it's like, oh, that's hard. Like, let me put that on. But we don't consider Beyonce to be hard for some reason, even though she can rap and sing circles, not pitting against anybody, but she has the same capabilities, if not more, than some of the female artists or female rappers that we'll consider hard. And she can occupy that space as well as the soothing space, as well as, you know, a whole array of genres and cadences in between. And that kind of opens up the question of, well, what's hard? What makes something hard? Why is Beyonce in our talks of music and black men's talks of music not hard enough? She doesn't fit into any one mold, so it's just too much, or we just kind of tune it out or assume that's for LGBT community, that's for black women, that's for all these other communities except us. Why don't we actually claim her? And we can look at some of her discography and point out, you know, if Future was on the same beat as 7-Eleven, come on, we would be saying that shit's hard. Like,
I'm familiar with this cash flow, and if you jugging, you can vouch for me. I did it my way, you can vouch for me.
I've been falling, I was geeking, I was high as fuck, tweaking. I was trying to strike shit,
She could rob my face, I don't want nothing in return, except for some her time and all her love, that's my concern. I'm trying to buy my neighbor house and turn it to a...
So to say Beyonce's not hard is just kind of, again, it's just us not taking the time to explore her work, or not give it the time of day because we've already associated it with other communities that aren't our own. So that's just kind of the nature of it. With someone like Sexy Red, she's such a new artist that it's like, maybe women aren't listening to Sexy Red. I don't know. I'm sure women are, but we have enough quote unquote agency over it as men to be like, oh, well, this is a new artist. If I just play in this way, or if I make a TikTok about it, and then all these guys are like, hell yeah, Sexy Red's so hard, then it feels like, oh, I can play Sexy Red around the bros, and we're all gonna go, you know, ski. But I can't play, you know, kitty cat around the bros, because that's not really gonna fly. Like, it just doesn't really make sense. And I think that also goes back to the Solange discussion of maybe we felt like there was some space to claim Solange or to play Solange's music in the space or presence of other black men and not feel side-eyed or looked at, or question as to why we put on Solange versus putting on, you know, something off of Renaissance. And Solange has music that can kind of fit into that category, like Almeida, you know, where maybe Cardi's verse is all we're really waiting for, or Solange is just kind of a prop for us to use as a metric of hardness while not having to be, you know, overtly like a SoundCloud rapper or something like that. It shows a depth in our musical taste, but it's not really going beyond the surface of, well, the beat's cool and it's got a Cardi feature, so, you know. And I just want to say, obviously, you know, everything I've said could be undercut by the fact that music is subjective, and I am kind of generalizing, as I'm only speaking from the experience of myself as a straight black man and other straight black men around me. And there's so much more to music than even what I've experienced. But at the same time, I think there is something to be said about the level of attention that men are not willing to give to black women, or only on the stipulation of the fact of how they dress, their cadence, how they sound, what they're saying. Whereas we could play, you know, literal nonsense, if I'm gonna be honest, and bump it and say that shit's hard and not give a second thought to it. But all of these stipulations come into play when it comes to feeling comfortable engaging with a black female artist. And I just think that's a little hypocritical, especially on part of saying that you're a music lover and music listener and you listen to everything. It just doesn't really fly. The only other argument I could think of is that maybe Beyonce occupies a space that one may consider too popular or isn't underground enough, whereas someone like Solange might feel like an underdog, so to speak. But at the same time, Beyonce isn't the most streamed black woman in the world, at least on Spotify. You know, she hasn't won any Grammys for Album of the Year, which is obviously the most notable Grammy. You know, she's still an underdog in a lot of many ways in our culture, and she is still undervalued for what she's brought to our culture for so many years, so consistently, by multiple demographics. She has the communities that she knows are present, but I feel like as far as, again, straight black men, like, there is a bit of a disconnect there culturally. And just for context, if you don't believe me, again, this is only going off Spotify, but Beyonce only has one song over 1 billion streams, and it's Halo, which, again, we can unpack the messaging and why that song has the most amount of streams versus even Drunk in Love or anything from her discography. Some artists that rank higher than her on Spotify include David Guetta,
shout out to his family,
Eminem,
an awfully hot,
Imagine Dragons, Maroon 5. So yeah, I mean, music is music, and you just might not resonate with Beyonce, and I guess that's fine, but there's probably things in her discography that you've yet to do the homework and experience about her career and what she's gone through, and just the music on a surface level. So I think there's more to it than that. And, you know, go stream Beyonce, go stream Mariah Carey, go stream Tinashe, go stream Sexy Red, go stream Lotto, go stream Esperanza Spalding. You know, like, we've got a whole breadth of beautiful music created by black women that don't have to fit into any one pocket. So I think I've learned that and continue to learn that as I'm getting older. And I hope other straight black men loosen up a little, you know, shake some ass, you know. It's cool. Like, it's cool. I rock with you. So thank you all for watching. And I just wanted to throw something into the ether of music commentary by a black person with my set of experiences that relate to black music, because so much of the content on here is not that. So thank you again, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.